That's a me.
We now call the meeting of the Authority Board to order. We ask that you give your attention to this short video. Terry Ann, please, no.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Now, Terry Ann, could you please conduct roll?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Here.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Here.
Commissioner Banales?
Here.
Commissioner Burgess?
Here.
Commissioner Carlson?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner/Representative Nowak?
Here.
Commissioner Obringer?
Yes. Here.
Commissioner Xavier?
Here.
Vice Chair G?
Here.
Chair Meadows?
Here.
Representative Foley?
Present.
Representative Worth? Okay, we do have a quorum with everyone present, with the exception of Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Terry Ann. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please mute your mics if you're attending remotely. Please rise and join me in the pledge. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Terry Ann, have we received any written public comment?
We have not received any written public comment.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak? See anybody?
No public comment.
That concludes public comment. Item 4, election. The next item on the agenda is election of the chair and vice chair for 2026. Do I have any nominations to replace me as chair and vice chair?
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate Darlene G. as chair and Sue Nowak as vice chair.
Terry Ann, could you conduct roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Banales?
Yes.
Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes.
Commissioner Obringer?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair G?
Aye.
Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
I assume there was no public comments on that either.
We do not have any public comment.
Thank you. Cool, I'm done.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is to recognize our outgoing chair, Erin Meadows. So I appear to have all kinds of lovely things here, including this wonderful proclamation and, most impressively, this wonderful plaque. So how about I share with the audience and the board the commendation for your service, which we do indeed appreciate. This commends Aaron Meadows for his dedicated service last year as our chair. He led the Contra Costa Transportation Authority with steadiness, professionalism, and a clear focus on results. Under his chairmanship, the authority initiated development of a new transportation expenditure plan and advanced critical long-range planning through the countywide transportation plan, strengthening board engagement and sharpening the agency's direction for the future. Chair Meadows also ensured the stabilization and continued advancement of Gomentum Station as a nationally recognized hub for innovation and new partnerships to expand testing in Contra Costa County. And during his tenure, the authority delivered major safety and connectivity improvements, including the opening of the Iron Horse Trail bicycle pedestrian overcrossing, and CCTA supported transit safety and security by funding new Bay Area rapid transit fare gates, created the Accessible Advisory Committee to expand and strengthen accessible transportation in Contra Costa County, and advanced glideways in East County. The authority also secured funding for smart traffic signals in Oakley and Antioch and completed a comprehensive gap and needs assessment to support workforce development through the Gomentum Innovation Alliance. Through his leadership, CCTA oversaw the successful completion of the Presto program, demonstrating national leadership in innovative mobility and establishing a strong foundation to scale future mobility solutions across Contra Costa County. At the same time, CCTA elevated its brand by modernizing communications through refreshed public-facing materials and the launch of a new logo, while strong financial stewardship continued to deliver measurable stability and preserve the authority's AAA credit rating. The authority secured $58 million in state funding for Interstate 680, State Route 4 interchange improvements, and expanded fiber optic infrastructure to enable next-generation transportation technology and improve internet access for underserved communities. So it is with gratitude that we all recognize Aaron Meadows' leadership as chair and his steadfast commitment to delivering Contra Costa's programs and projects. And it's my pleasure to present you with this commendation. And even better, we have this beautiful plaque for you. Very cool. So, it is very cool.
Had the bigger smile, Terry, under you.
All right. All right, with that, yes. Very nicely done. We very much appreciate your service, and we're very happy that we'll be continuing to have you with us. All right, so that takes us to our next item, which is committee assignments for, I'm sorry. Before I go on, I do want to give everybody else an opportunity. Does anyone else have any comments they would like to make for our outgoing chair?
I will. I just want to thank him for all his work this year, and with a sense of humor that that was not included in the commendation. Don't look at me like that. I'm just glad we're taking the gavel away from you. Besides that,
She hasn't
good
heard
job.
me yet. Are there any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Oberg.
Thank you. So I just want to thank Commissioner Meadows for making me feel so welcome. Your time as chair was my first year serving here. And also, because of you, we had occasion to go out to Oakley on multiple occasions. But really, I think it was very helpful, right, for us to see as we would go out for the board workshops or for the holiday party, to really get the up-close look at the need to address the congestion and the real quality of life impacts for those who are living in East County, the need for more jobs out there, to keep BART active in East County as well. So thank you.
And fortunately for everybody here, they got to have the reverse commute. They didn't have to sit in all that traffic. They just got to see it, opposed to the workshops that are coming up this year.
Well, no, when I went to the holiday party, it was, yes. That was 6 PM in Oakley.
One day out of 5.
And
Anything else? Yes, Commissioner Burgess?
Aaron, I remember when you were first brought on as the chair, how you talked about how meaningful it was that there were all these people that held you up and encouraged you. And I want to say, I think you've lived up to all of that encouragement, and I appreciate your representation of East County.
Thank you, Diane.
Anything else?
I'll just follow up on Sue's comment, because that's what I do. The certificate or the proclamation didn't say how you wielded the gavel with strength, authority, and volume, and how much we appreciated that this year. But again, a great job, a great year, so thanks for leadership.
Ken, it's all in the rest.
Representative Worth?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I can't have this go without being, comments from this end of the dais. Aaron, I just want to say what a joy it was to serve with you, and want to thank you so much. And you are one of the few, your family, one of the few second generation, 2 generations of community service to Contra Costa. So having known your father, and it's just been a delight to work with you, and thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you, Amy.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aaron, I've enjoyed being on this board with you as chair and getting to know you. I think you're a great person, and you've run good meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Anybody else? Yes, Chris?
Yeah, and I just want to echo what everybody else has said. Aaron, you. Including me? Including Sue and Ken, and I agree about the gavel. My goodness, that was.
I had to sit on his right-hand side, come on.
I know. But you did a really good job. At times it's tough, leading all us cats, and you did it with a sense of humor, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. You got to have fun in life.
I would just add that, one of the things that was sort of mentioned, this was a new board. Over half of our board was brand new this year. And that in itself we're all getting to know each other. We have one new board member coming on now. And that was a big change. For the past decade, there hasn't been a whole lot of movement. And truthfully, it's for the better. Carlin, as I know, has wanted to be here for a long time. We needed representation. And, Aaron, you did a great job in closed sessions and all those things of how to inform people who had, very little background compared to where the board was before. And we're a better board. We've moved forward. We've accomplished a lot. That list was fun to listen to. And even with all the things we have done the previous years in raising money, we still raise $58 million. Is a lot of money. Any one of us would die for that kind of thing. So well done. Thank you. And I did enjoy sitting next to you, by the way.
Thank you, Noel. That list is, my name might have been read, but it's not. It's the board and it's the staff. So, well done.
Anyone else? Well, I certainly want to say thank you. You've been a great role model. I've been very grateful that I've been on the other side of your gavel. But I do want to thank the board. It's been a huge opportunity for me to join this board. Some of you know that I spent many decades of my professional life working on transportation improvements in the Bay Area. And so to be able to join this board has just been especially rewarding for me, and I'm definitely looking forward to this year. So I want to thank all of you, and I appreciate all the role models that I've gotten to work with and see on this board. So I'm looking forward to 2026.
Oh, if I have just a moment, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Chair Meadows, Commissioner Meadows. One of the other things I think that's really important, and Commissioner Armitage took the words right out of my mouth, is that we really stepped in last year in terms of like a whole brand-new board, and really getting everyone, at the same level and education level and working together and coordinating together. And, I think it takes a lot of leadership. And I think the other thing with Commissioner Meadows is that, he didn't have the benefit of actually being vice chair the previous year. And he actually stepped into this like eyes wide open. And I really appreciate the way that, I really appreciated the way that Aaron really stepped in, just, eyes wide open and like, I'm ready, I'm here, how can I help? I'm ready to hit the ground running. And he's been doing that every single month, every single meeting, every single day, really profoundly really helping to get all of us, working together, particularly with this new board. And it's been a really pleasure working with you, Aaron. All of our time we spent a lot of time together last year. And I really appreciate all the advice, the guidance, the mentorship, and everything that you provided to me over the last year. I'm really excited for you to be on the board, and I look forward to your continued leadership on the board. And as you all know, the next 2-3 years are really important for CCTA as we think about this expenditure plan. And I think the fact that we've kicked it off under Aaron's leadership is really, really impressive. And I look forward to continue working with you, Aaron. And I'm always here to support you and the entire board. But thanks again for your leadership and all the great work that you've done throughout the year.
Thank you, Tim.
And speaking of board, I think we should welcome our new board member. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add, but Juan, we want to welcome you and give you the opportunity to maybe say a few words.
Well, thank you so much for the warm welcome. Definitely am excited to join the board. I've served as a council member for the city of Pittsburgh for a little over 10 years and had the opportunity to serve on Transplan for a number of years as well. So really excited to just see how I can help and maybe bring some of my perspective as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so Terry Ann, did we have any public comments about our outgoing chair, Mr. Meadows?
No public comment has been received.
Okay, then we are going to move along. Our next agenda item is committee assignments. And right now, Commissioners Arnrich, Benales, Noack, Xavier, and myself are assigned to the Administration and Projects Committee. Commissioners Armstrong, Carlson, Kelly, Meadows, and Obringer are assigned to the Planning Committee. Commissioner Burgess is not assigned to either committee to ensure that we do not have a quorum of members from the county assigned to either committee. So are there any changes requested or comments from the Authority Board? Or if anyone would like to speak from the public on this issue, please raise your virtual hand or submit a speaker card, and staff or I will call on you. So Terry Ann, do you have any written or in-person comments on this item?
No public comment.
Okay, so I'll turn to, I guess, Commissioner Armstrong. Did you have a comment first?
Well, I'd just like to say, if the opportunity allows, I'd like to see what the APC side of things does, and I've been on planning, and I'd like to go over to administration of projects if possible. That would actually free up a conflict with a city level meeting, a finance committee meeting that I have right now. I can get that moved, so I'm not, if it's not possible to move to the different committee in terms of scheduling, then I can work it on the city side, but that would be my preference, just because it gives me an opportunity to see a different side of the Authority Board.
And Commissioner Xavier, you also?
Yes, I am on the Administration and Projects Committee, and I would like to ask if Commissioner Kelly could take my place on that committee, because I have severe transportation difficulties first thing in the morning. Getting a bus to BART, so an afternoon meeting would be much better for me.
Okay. And I assume that's okay with you, Commissioner Kelly?
Yes, that would be okay with me.
And then do we have anyone else that wants to change at this time for?
Yeah, I
It
mean,
would require.
yeah, I mean, maybe just some background here. I think the way that committees are formed, is that they're representative of the 4 subregions. And so there's a representative from, APC, Southwest, East, and Central, and then the Mayor's Conference representative. And then on PC, it's the 4 subregions and a Board of Supervisors. So if Commissioner Armstrong wants to switch, it means that Commissioner G would have to switch with Commissioner Armstrong to make that work, because you're on APC, he's on PC, and the 2 of you would have to switch committees. The same thing that's happening with Commissioner Xavier and Commissioner Kelly to really make that work. So we can discuss that, or we can table the item and bring it back if we'd like.
Yeah, I don't want to create a disruption here. I can leave it the way it is.
Okay.
I'll just get the city level conflict adjusted.
Okay.
But, if it wasn't too hard, that would have worked for me, but it sounds like it's a little bit tricky, so let's just leave it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Armstrong.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so then I think we need a motion to make the approved changes and to confirm.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, let's see. Okay, everybody did that really fast. So it was Commissioner Burgess that made the motion, Commissioner Meadows was the second. Okay, so will you do our roll call, Terry Ann, please?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Banales?
Yes.
Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes?
Commissioner Obringer?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I messed this one up. Vice Chair G?
Yes.
Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. I'll update the titles.
Chair, may I make one comment?
Yes, certainly.
I'm really sorry to leave that committee because I think it's a very interesting committee and I have enjoyed every meeting. It's just that I can't get there easily. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate that very much,
Yeah.
Commissioner Xavier, and we've appreciated your contributions on the committee. And I guess we have to say, as a Transportation Board, you are a real example of some of the things we need to improve in the transportation world.
Yeah, like get more money?
So, okay, with that, we move to our next item, which would be presentations, but we do not have any presentations tonight. So that takes us to our consent calendar. And there was a handout left for you by Terry Ann for a revision to consent calendar item 10C. And I'm going to let you, Terry Ann, go ahead and explain what everyone's looking at a little bit further before we move forward.
Yeah, so in the handout packet, we have the revised agenda blur, which changes the total figure for the TFCA. It's related to Planning Committee item 10C. So it changes the total amount of the appropriation. There's also the revised staff report, revised resolution, and revised expenditure plan. And it changes the total amount to $5,725,040. So I think it was a less than $100,000 difference, Daniel? Oh, $1,000 difference. And it was in regards to an email that was received today, late afternoon, from the Air District that changed the figure.
Okay, so with that clarification, thank you, Terry Ann. Are there any changes or comments from the board, or does anyone want to pull any of the items from the consent calendar? Looking this way, I'm looking that way.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Okay, is there a second?
Second that motion.
Okay, so our motion was by, oh, yes. Terry Ann, I'm sorry, is there any public comment on the item?
We have received no public comment.
So, okay. So with that, the motion was Commissioner Carlson, the second was Commissioner Obringer. So will you do our roll call?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Banales?
Yes.
Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows?
Yes.
Commissioner Obringer?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nowak?
Totally threw me. I was ready to go after Kelly. Yes.
Chair G?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. So, fantastic, thank you. That moves us to our regular agenda items. And the first item is an action item from the Administration and Projects Committee to be presented by Halima Barocha to appoint an authority board representative to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So Halima, welcome.
Good evening. How are you all doing? Thank you for being here. We're really excited to take our next steps towards the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So this first item is to select a member that will represent the authority board. And I can pull up the bylaws and make sure that we go over what those requirements are for this specific role. And then we do have a presentation for the following item. So for the authority board representative, this is a non-voting position, and this representative must be non-elected representative that is chosen by authority board. The representative cannot represent a transit agency or serve on a transit agency board. So those are the parameters for the authority board representative.
Great, thank you, Halima. Are there any nominations or comments on this position from the Authority Board?
I have a nomination.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner
I
Carlson.
would like to nominate Karen Mitchell for that role.
Excellent.
Second.
And I'd like to second that. Working with
We're ganging up on it.
former Supervisor Mitchoff on this item, I know that she's not only well-informed about this, but she also cares deeply about this. So I think she'd be a great appointee.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Carlson, a second by Commissioner Burgess. So Terry Ann, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments. Do we have any further nominations?
Commissioner Obringer?
Thank you. I just had a clarifying question since I do not see Supervisor Mitchoff here. So I'm assuming that someone spoke with her and she knows she's been nominated and that she's interested?
That's an excellent question, and I hope the answer is yes.
Okay, so she knows about this and wants to do it. Okay, just confirming.
Nothing like being voluntold, right?
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, Terry Ann, can you do the roll?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Aye.
Commissioner Banales?
Yes.
Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows?
Yes.
Commissioner Obringer?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Nowak?
Yes?
Chair G? Motion passes unanimously.
The next item is a subsequent action to the first item, also to be presented by Halima to confirm the nomination and appointments of the public transit rider representatives and confirm the nomination and appointments to the Accessibility Advisory Committee and dissolve the Paratransit Coordinating Council.
Thank you so much. I have a brief presentation here for you all today to review the nominations that were made by the APC, and also the nominations that were submitted by potential members to serve on the AAC. And so for these positions, the board, MTC, county, and transit agencies are responsible for appointing their own representatives and alternates. We had one position for each of the 5 transit agencies, and these are the members that they submitted. Some of them submitted alternates, some of them did not. We also received a letter from the county and from MTC with their nominations. All right, I'm going to move to the next set of nominations that were brought forward. We also sought nominations from social service agencies and human service transportation providers to serve on this committee. Once those agencies and providers submitted their nomination letters, the APC selected which entities would move forward, and then those entities would be responsible for appointing their own alternatives and representatives. So I do have the eligibility listed here along with the organizations that submitted. We have one organization to represent older adults, one to represent persons with disabilities, one to represent persons of limited means, and one agency to represent people with developmental disabilities. And we received nominations for each of those. We only received one nomination for each of those categories, so there are no alternate organizations for that one. For the human service transportation providers, the only criteria for their eligibility is that they must receive Measure J or 5310 funding to provide accessible transportation. And we received 3 nomination letters. 2 were selected by the APC as primaries with 1 alternate, and those names and organizations are listed here. Last but not least, we have our community members, so public transit rider representatives, which were first appointed by or approved by a majority vote of the APC, and will now be confirmed by the authority board. We had a total of 9 applications for 4 positions, 2 representing public transit riders who are 60 plus, and 2 representing public transit riders with disabilities. The eligibility is that they must live or work in the county and have current relevant experience using public transit in the county. So at the last APC meeting, all 9 were invited for interviews. We had 6 that showed up for their interviews, and these 5 were selected to move forward, 4 as primaries and 1 as an alternate. And so we are requesting approval from the board to confirm the appointment of the 4 public transit rider positions and alternates to the AAC, as well as finalize and confirm the AAC nominations, and appoint the nominees in accordance with our bylaws, and of course, adopt our resolution to formally dissolve the PCC. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Halima. Are there any questions for Halima from the board? Are there? Yes, Commissioner Oberg?
Yeah, so I just had one question. So I did note that there are some positions that there is not an alternate. So is it anticipated that there is going to be a challenge convening meetings, holding quorums? Like what do we do if these individuals, you know, regularly aren't able to participate? Like what's the backup plan so the committee can meet?
Yeah, if we're not able to meet quorum, then we would not be able to have our meetings, but we are hopeful that we will have a strong attendance. I think for the social service and human service groups, we do have a good set of alternates. So the only one that might come up potentially could be the writers. But if we see that, we can also work with our subcommittee once the AAC launches to identify additional candidates to bring on as alternates since we have that opening.
Thank you.
A couple of these people have been on the prior committee, and so, when we interviewed them, we also found out their ability to attend and their track record on attending, and so we were comfortable with a couple of them being on, having had very good attendance at previous advisory council.
I would,
Yes.
yeah, if I could just add, one, I think those are some of the best people we've interviewed in years. I think they're the right people for the right categories. The structure of the new committee, I think, is better aligned for success. the other thing about going to meetings, they can do both virtual and attend in person. And as you know, with some of the folks there, physically getting around is a big challenge to them. But their voices are important whether they're physically there or not. So I think under the new meeting rules and stuff, that accommodates everybody. So the expectation, as Sue said, not only we asked them, but the fact is it's likely to have really good attendance because of the fact that you can do it virtually, which will help some people, particularly those with physical disabilities. So, but really, over the past 10, 15 years, I think this is the best group of people we've seen.
And if I may add, we had our accessible transportation strategic plan workshop yesterday and today, and many of the members who were nominated to serve on the AAC were present and active and engaged over the last 2 days, and we had really wonderful discussions. We had a full house, and so that also gave me a lot of confidence. They have great ideas and great contributions, so we're very excited for this new committee.
Great. Anything else from the board? Jim?
I just want to know, I mean, something, now that we're kind of changing from the Paratransit Coordinating Committee to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, I just want to note that Terry Ann is working on, you know, making updates to our admin code and office procedures, because there are several places, you know, in our admin code that specifically references the Paratransit Coordinating Committee, and so there's definitely some administrative things behind the scenes that kind of need to take place that we'll be bringing to the board, you know, in the future. But this is obviously a really great milestone. I think everyone's really excited. I think I attended the accessibility workshop yesterday, and I just, you know, I really want to thank Danielle and Halima, the fantastic work that they put into that, because there was great attendance, great engagement, a lot of great work, great breakout groups, as well as they've even invited some really great guest speakers, you know, to kind of really represent the group and represent the writers. And so it was a really fantastic time to, you know, as you think about this, we've been trying to implement the recommendations from the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. And so this is one of those recommendations. So, you know, the ATSP was approved by the, just for history for everyone, the ATSP was approved back in 2022, 2022.
21.
Or 21, thank you. It was right when Karen was getting ready to come off the board, and so she was a big leader for the ATSP and really was focused and passionate about this topic, and so we thought that was a good opportunity to kind of bring her back and engage her. But since then, we've been implementing these programs and projects and so forth, and this is a huge milestone because it really helps the group be able to start making really key decisions about implementing the recommendations in the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. So governance is always first, right? Because if you get the governance straight, then we can make good decision making, you know, which is really key, and it keeps things simple. So, but again, I want to really congratulate Danielle and Halima for their leadership on this accessibility workshop and getting to this point, because it is a lot of work getting to this point.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, I'd move the item as presented for the slate and for the recommendations on to dissolve the Paratransit Coordinating Council.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion by Commissioner Arnrich and second by Commissioner Xavier. And did I check, did we have any public comments?
I don't see any, but I see one of the public transit writers, so I'm just waiting. It looks like we have no public comment.
Okay, then seeing nothing else from the board, can you take the roll call, please?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Yes.
Commissioner Banales?
Yes.
Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows,
Yes.
Commissioner Obringer,
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nowak,
Yes?
Chair G.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. So that, thank you, Halima. We look forward to that. And our next item is an informational item that's going to be presented by Ryan McLean to provide us an update on the Go-Menem station operations.
All right, thank you, Chair G. Good evening, commissioners. So here today to give an update on kind of operations over at Gomentum Station. The last time we presented on this topic was back in May of last year, which was about the 1-year mark of CCTA taking back over Gomentum Station. So we wanted to give another update kind of as things have progressed since then. Also want to acknowledge that Kevin Romick, Executive Director of Next Generation Mobility, is here as well. So just kind of going back to some of the basic questions around Gomentum Station, why Gomentum Station, why is this interesting, or why is CCTA interested in operating Gomentum Station? And I think we've really seen this as a way to bring technology to Contra Costa County that helps our residents travel throughout the county and get there kind of first or very soon after first to see some of those improvements. And it really helps set us up for a lot of the grants that we've received to be doing this work out there and having this test bed there. It's also really helping to demonstrate things to our residents as this technology evolves. We're trying to take a proactive approach on technology instead of maybe a reactive approach as the technology comes to us. So really wanting to be proactive in how we approach technology as a solution to some of our transportation challenges that we have in Contra Costa County. So some of the technologies that are being tested out at Gomentum actively, obviously lots of fully autonomous AV passenger vehicles. We've had trucking out there, short distance delivery robot type vehicles, ADAS systems, various sensing technologies out there. And then we've also partnered with UC Berkeley and other educational institutions to do their testing that they're doing out there. And then really recently been focused on the vehicle to everything component. Tim mentioned maybe last meeting or a couple meetings ago that we received the Safe Streets for All grant from the feds, $3.3 million there to test out kind of this vehicle communication outs for emergency vehicles and to communicate out to autonomous vehicles to tell them to steer clear of emergency sites. So that's another thing that's going to be coming there with that grant. So going all the way back to 2023, just wanted to walk through the history for those that may not know it. Back in October, 2023 is when AAA informed us that they were no longer going to be operating out there as of April 1st, 2024. So that was basically our runway to get going and get operations back up and running under CCTA. In February of 2024, the board approved a $1 million loan from the FER to support that transition. In March of 2024, the authority approved a professional services agreement with Next Generation Mobility to operate Gomentum Station for us. Also in March, the authority approved purchasing the assets that were out there from AAA. And then April 1st, 2024 is when CCTA and Next Generation began management of Gomentum Station. That agreement between CCTA and Next Gen was a 5-year agreement. CCTA maintained ownership of the program, the rights to the name Gomentum Station, the trademark around that, and all the physical assets at the facility. We also made sure that we had priority access for testing technologies that we were interested in, that we wanted to see deployed. NextGen was responsible or is responsible for day-to-day operations out there and management. And then it also defined kind of the requirements on deliverables that they gave to us. In there, it also stipulated the minimum $500,000 per year that Next Generation was to give to CCTA for operating out there at a minimum, and then that increases as revenue goes over the $5 million mark to whatever 10% of that is. It also defined liquidated damages for any breach of those contracts. So I did want to go back to kind of that first year operating out there, which you have seen these numbers before at the last update that we gave. And there was a lot of red in that first year, and we really saw this as kind of the transition year, right? This is when we were taking that over, had to put some money into Gomentum to get that up and running. But towards Q4, and this is calendar year on here, so towards the end of the year 2024, we actually started to see some of that revenue come in and ended up in the black for that quarter. That led us into 2025, which we've seen really as kind of the stabilization year. So this is where we really started to see, we saw a net profit at the end of the year, and really those operations starting to balance out with the amount that was being spent. You'll see a big jump in Q3 here. That's really because there was a large amount of accounts payable that was outstanding. This is on a cash basis, so there was a large chunk of those accounts payable that was finally paid in Q3, and that was catching up for the previous quarters. Just talking about the calendar year 2026 budget. So you see we ended up at close to $500,000 in the positive at the end of 2025. Seeing that drop a bit, 2026 is really going to be about kind of growth. So we had the stabilization in 2025 and looking to grow in 2026. And so there's a fair amount of money being put into marketing on that front. Also, you'll see, so the loan and debt services are what's being paid to CCTA, and I'll go into a little bit more details on that, but basically making some catch-up payments this year as well. So that budget is inclusive of those payments to CCTA. So the $500,000 per year was met for 2025. That was basically the first time that that payment was made to CCTA, and we were seeing that as $125,000 per quarter. And so they completed their payments for 2025, and then also made an additional payment to start to pay back from that first year. So we didn't receive any payments during that transition year, which meant that they're essentially $375 behind on those payments. So that $125,000 is the first kind of makeup payment of that. They've been making payments on their loan the entire time. So that's a 7-year term on that loan, that $1 million loan from the FIR. So those payments have been coming in this whole time. For 2026, expected to make the $500,000 payment, as well as the remaining $250,000 to make up for 2024. And then also continued payments on that loan. Again, $1 million from the fund exchange reserve to support that transition, 7-year repayment schedule, and payments made quarterly. So again, those have been made on time to date. Outstanding balance of $740,000. So looking out 5 years, see continued growth here, and I'll get into a little bit more about the increased partnerships that we see coming down the pipeline. The green of the net income is basically stable and low. That's because this is a nonprofit, so carrying money from year to year as a profit is not where we're going, but the idea is that the more money that comes in, the more can be invested into the program and into some of the innovation programs at CCTA. So just kind of wanted to show the trend on the inquiries that we've been getting. So that's been kind of a steady uptick on potential partners reaching out and asking about Gomentum. It's been a little slow to turn those into contracts, but that's actually accelerated in the last couple months. So now a lot more of those inquiries are turning into contracts. But we have gotten 4 new partners who've never tested at Gomentum Station before. 3 of those are actually original equipment manufacturers, so car manufacturers that are looking to test there. The utilization story, so this is basically how much of the facility is being used at any given time. And you can see that dropped off quite a bit through November and through the transition. That really was primarily because a lot of the testing that was happening out of there, those partners transitioned to testing on the roads, and some of them no longer exist anymore. So there was kind of a dip there. We're seeing much more interest though, and you could see that with the inquiries of testing happening there again. So we're seeing that as a positive, but also seeing that this needs to be a focus to get that utilization up. Some of the reason that you don't see this dip in utilization reflected in the revenue numbers is restructuring of the pricing that happened back in February that kind of split the day into 2 testing periods, and we're able to actually bring in more revenue that way. So again, 2024 transition, 2025 stabilization, and 2026 we're really seeing as the year of growth for this. Have 130,000 in there for marketing in the budget. This could include grants as well, writing grants to get more testing out there. And then again, kind of a focus on some tier 1 OEMs out there that are going to be testing frequently and consistently, as opposed to some of these smaller partners that are just kind of testing one-off every once in a while. So a bit more focus on getting some stable testing happening out there. And again, looking at opportunities to talk about Gomentum Station at conferences, and also including in there some grant writing budget, similar to what we got this Safe Streets for All grant with, to facilitate, to actually pay for some of the testing that's happening out there. Wanted to walk through one of the examples of us testing, of CCTA testing out there and technologies that we want to see come to our communities. So the bus on shoulder testing that happened out there was to start to explore the bus on shoulder that we've got as part of the Innovate 680 project, to run buses on the shoulder of 680 between Bishop Ranch and Walnut Creek BART. And so this was kind of the first step of that. And this was to actually get people comfortable with the idea of the buses running there. And so we set up a bunch of different scenarios out there, and we'll actually come back with more information on this once the reports are kind of wrapped up. But we had basically a couple weeks of testing that was going on, lots of different stakeholders, partnership with County Connection to have County Connection out there with their drivers. CHP was out there, Caltrans was out there. So it was really kind of a great use of a closed setup that we have at Gomentum Station to get everybody comfortable with kind of a newer idea. Yeah, so we're able to make use of a lot of the different testing sites with different scenarios. And oops. Let's see if we can get the video to play. Not this time. Anyway, we'll come back with an update. You'll be able to see the videos. And this was really just a great success in partnership. Caltrans actually kind of paused their release of their guidelines for statewide bus on shoulder so that we could do this testing and give them recommendations to include it in there. So really kind of a great example of what we can use Gomentum Station for and how that can translate to the streets and roads in Contra Costa County. And with that, happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Okay, Commissioner Kelly?
Ryan, thank you very much. And I did watch the presentation at APC, and I think I saw the video for the testing the bus on shoulder. Everybody should go take a look at that. That was pretty cool, and I think that was a really great use of Gomentum Station for this. Just to kind of recap a few things. So the agreement with NextGen runs to April 2029. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and right now NextGen is paying off that $1 million from the FER. They owe $742,000, and that they got 7 years, so that'll go up to April 2031. So is that right?
That's correct.
And then in 2026, it looks like from what you projected here, you project more income, but it'll pretty much be even, maybe just with a net income of about $65,000. And that's because you're allowing for some some marketing and some other things. How confident are you really that revenue's going to grow like 25, 26% in 2026?
I think with the contracts that they're signing, we're pretty confident in that. The other piece is that some of that is money that's going to be needed to put in new facilities that the partners may ask for. And so if the partners aren't there to ask for that, that money won't be spent. So some of that amount
Okay.
that's being spent in 2026 would be because we're increasing testing there.
Okay, and I noticed that labor is going to go up in 2026. Are we hiring more people, or what's all that about?
That's a good,
It's proportional to the amount of contracts. More contracts,
Yeah.
more labor.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if we are hiring more people, or is it fairly steady there?
it's been fairly steady. Kevin can answer that.
One
more
more
person.
person. Okay, so Kevin gave us an answer there. Okay. Another question I have is, I know at some point Brookfield will be coming into Gomentum Station and, doing their development, but it's going to be over a long period of time. Are we going to be able to test at Gomentum for a while, over several years?
Yes, yeah, based on their current plans, we'll be able to test there for a number of years going forward. And while we don't know the exact timeline of when all that development will happen, we feel confident that we've got many years out there still.
Okay, so I just wanted to know, because I hadn't heard about it for a while. Last question is, what about collaboration with UC Berkeley at the Richmond Field Station? I know that you've talked about that before. Can you bring us up to speed on that one?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So Richmond Field Station, we are currently still finalizing the agreement. They've actually, so UC Berkeley has asked us to operate it, so NextGen would help operate that. It would basically become a new test zone. Similar to in Concord, it would just happen to be at Richmond Field Station. So we're pretty close on that. There's actually a couple different opportunities that we see there. This Safe Streets for All grant is a good example of one that could also be tested out at Richmond Field Station. There's some more flexibility that we have with what we can do out there than what we can do at Naval Weapons in terms of digging holes to put water in if they want to test that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So I think it's going to kind of expand what we're able to provide. So we actually have a meeting next week to hopefully finalize that.
Okay, that's great. That sounds promising. And I guess the last thing that I would say is, if, for example, our financial projections don't work out and revenue really starts to dip, would you come back like in the fall and just let us know?
Yes.
Okay. I do worry about the finances, but I'm glad to see that things are looking up. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Burgess, did you have a question before Commissioner
Thank you.
Oberg?
What is the interest rate that they're paying on that loan?
It's a variable based on the,
Prime plus.
do you have that?
It's 4%, it's based on LAIF, right?
Okay, I just wanted to kind of make sure that was documented as people watch these kind of things. The other question I had is when these kind of technologies, what I'm observing is that more people want to do these kind of things. So since we started doing this, has there become other competition for what we do?
In terms of that,
Yeah,
the type of testing that we're doing.
yeah.
Sorry. I would say there's not a lot of competition on the West Coast, and there's not competition this close to Silicon Valley. And so there's a lot of interest in where a lot of this technology is being developed and having a close place to test that. So I would say that's one of our big advantages. of
Good.
our
And
location.
then the last question I have is we go into wanting to renew this tax, our tax measure. Is there a financial analysis of the value to the county? I know that you were saying it's still stabilizing and marketing and all of that, but will the voters be able to recognize, because I know, I heard what you're saying, like, we'll be the first adopters, we become more comfortable, we have access to that, there might be more, opportunities as a laboratory, as a county, because we're so close. but has there been enough financial analysis so that when people ask these questions that we're doing this, can we show a value to it?
I mean, I would say first that the Gomentum is intended to be self-sustaining, Gomentum Station, so that there isn't money for Measure that's very interested in that. So I would say that that's kind of the other direct kind of economic benefit to the county.
Same tactics that you're proposing in the marketing budget, has that helped us generate these new partners?
Yes, and I would say
So factor in, because I do know that, you know, on a regular basis, Gomentum has to go back to the Navy, right? Like through the city of Concord to get continued approvals and hopefully.
or not.
So you feel confident budgeting, for these anticipated requests, you're going to receive?
Yeah, I would, is how is putting AI into practice in the autonomous driving field. And
payments, they've paid off a quarter of that. And the projection we have is really good. And this is not us. This isn't CT's manufacturer. They don't use AI. Personal opinion, that's dangerous. AI can think faster and you or protections. The projections aren't just, I'm guessing. These are real. They already have the contracts. They're just finalizing them in signed agreements now. So, you know, I can just say, well, signed agreements now. So, you know, I can just say, well done.
Be presented by Jay Zhang to approve a contract.
About 1.36 million. 1.2 million comes from the earmark funding, and the remaining will be covered by local funds. So just to help the audience to understand some of the benefits of the project, this is kind of a before and after comparison. So right now, most of these intersections are running on fixed time signals. That means they're running on a preset schedule that cannot respond dynamically to traffic conditions. Also Oak Grove Road. This is a great exhibit that I kind of stole from Andy from his last presentation. I won't dive into too many details here, but the Concord project actually covers a lot of these elements you see here, actually 5 out of 6, to award it to DC Electric, including a 15% contingency, and to authorize execution of purchase orders with vendors for equipment and software, also with a 15% contingency. And lastly, to authorize the use of the remaining contract capacity or additional project savings for authority staff time, construction management, and optional signal timing implementation. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jay. Commissioner Burgess?
Just for folks that may not be familiar with this, can you give just a summary of what this does?
You mean the project?
What the, oh goodness, I'm trying to read it. What the Intelligent Transportation Systems Traffic Signal Modernization does for the city.
Yeah, so basically we were trying to improve the efficiency, reduce delay, reduce congestion on these corridors. So for residents, they'll experience a much more smoother traffic through these corridors.
So you won't be stopping at the red lights all
Exactly.
the time. It'll,
Yeah.
it'll be flowing. Okay. Right. So one of the questions that I have is, it said automated data collection. So that's talking about kind of the activity that's going on. It's not collecting license plates or any of those kind of things,
Right,
correct?
so it's related to traffic data, so more of traffic volume, near misses, things of that nature.
Do we anticipate that the technology will incorporate like red light, people going through red lights, also license plate readers, those kind of things into these types of systems in the future?
So there's no enforcement component in this project, but we do collect data for like red
Uh-huh.
So that's part of the safety analytics intersections.
So does it actually take the picture?
There's a short video usually.
Okay,
and the
so
staff have-
it is
Yeah.
a part
So
of
that's
that?
part of the proactive approach to these management. So before, you just know the accident happened, but now with the near miss, the red light running, you can proactively adjust the timing or change the layout of the
Yeah,
intersection.
it's not for I think your real question, it's not for enforcement.
Right.
So
This is
there won't
not-
be this sign that says, if you go through, there's a camera? Okay.
No, this is only the technology to help make traffic better. It would be up to each city if you want, like, we have a separate system. We don't need any of this. We have a flock system. We have situational awareness.
Right,
all
so
of that
that's,
stuff.
that's what I was wondering,
Totally
is do we anticipate in the future that all of those technologies might come into one, that, would
They
be
don't
one
now.
system? Yeah. I'm just thinking out loud, that's all. The last thing is, we intend someday for all the cities to have this, and they will all be able to communicate with each other. Are we using the same systems between all the different cities, or is it upon them to be able to work together?
So that's part of the countywide project. I believe each city has, some cities have existing system, so they're adding on to that. But we do have something called the center-to-center communication. So that's being able to collect data from all these different systems and being able to see it under one kind of shared platform as CCTA.
Thank you. I'm still learning, but I also hope that people will become curious and may come on and watch one of our meetings to kind of learn about it. So those are why I asked some kind of
Yeah,
basic
thank
questions.
you for the questions.
Thank you.
Board members? I have a question for you, Jay. Do you
Yes.
have any concerns about the bid being a fair amount lower than the engineer's estimate?
No, as you can see here, I think the engineer's estimate is actually right in the middle of the 4 bids. So you have the low bidder come in 20% lower and the high bidder about 20% higher. So it's actually something that you want to see. So I would say this is a pretty good representation.
Okay.
Yeah. And we also have the 15% contingency built
Okay,
into the
good.
project. Yeah.
You're right, it's where you want to be, but it's not that often anymore that you're under the engineer's estimate. It's a weak market. Okay, any other questions,
Is it-
comments from the board?
Is it the same contractor as in Danville?
Yes.
Yes.
DC Light.
So that could be part of the reason for the lower bid?
Yeah, and they're very local to Contra Costa County, so.
Well, and it's not like they are bidding this type of project for the first time.
And do we know, to follow up on that, do we know, there's going to be the third project, right, in East County? Do we know if this same contractor has also submitted for that? So maybe there's like an economy of scale if they're working on all 3?
East County, do you mean the new earmark project in
Yes.
locally in Antioch?
Mhm, yes.
So that project hasn't started yet. I can't say
Oh,
for
I'm
sure that.
sorry, La Miranda.
Oh,
is-
La Miranda.
Yes.
It just depends on if they have the capacity. So they already have 2 projects. It depends on the size of their, workforce. They
So
can-
we don't know if
Yeah, we don't know if
okay.
they'll bid on that
Got it.
project, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's no other, or when there are no other questions or comments, I would like to move approval of the staff recommendation and the resolution, Madam Chair.
Okay,
I will second that.
all right. So we have a motion by Commissioner Obringer, a second by Commissioner Carlson. So I'll ask if there are any public comments on this item.
We've received no public comment.
Okay, with that, Terry Ann, then can you take the vote?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Arnridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Banales?
Yes.
Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows?
Yes.
Commissioner Obringer?
Yes.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Noack?
Yes?
Chair G?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much, Jay. Okay, our next item, we have no regular item from the Planning Committee, but is our Transportation Expenditure Plan, and our project manager for the Transportation Expenditure Plan is coming up.
Hello, everyone. Project manager for the expenditure plan. Tim Hale, the executive director of CCTA. So we begin our journey. Last month you approved the contract with the TEP team to start engaging on the process, and this is really our first meeting that we're going to be having, with the authority board to start shaping the process of which we're going to be undertaking for the next, 2 to 3 years relative to this transportation expenditure plan. And this is a really important moment, I think, for the board as we start engaging with you to really start taking ownership, start shaping the process, providing input into the process. And CCTA staff will take that, and continue to bring this to you every single month, for the next couple years. As we continue to do that, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the board engagement before I get into the actual presentation itself. But, we plan to bring essentially agendize this every single month. If we have to meet with you more frequently, which has happened in the past, we will schedule special authority board meetings. I know when we were going through this process in 2020, we were almost having weekly authority board meetings as we were going through that process. And so as we get closer, I think, to the finish line, I could potentially see that happening again. And through this process, we're going to try to maintain this monthly cadence with the board and kind of bring items to you every single month. We will continue to maintain the 2 authority board workshops. So we've already confirmed dates for the May workshop as well as the October workshop. And so we'll use those as an opportunity to kind of do more deep dives, in the topics. But I think it's time to really kind of buckle up. I do anticipate these meetings could start getting longer. And hopefully you can all anticipate that and kind of schedule accordingly, because that's going to start happening. The other part of this is we're going to start scheduling 2 meetings per third Wednesday. So we'll have the regular authority board meeting with all of the regular business for the authority. And then we're going to be scheduling a second meeting, get this information out, obviously, as early as we possibly can. Our goal, and I've been talking with the team about this, is getting this information at least a week in advance to you, so you have time to review all of it, since you will be reviewing 2 packets instead of 1. And so our other thing that we're going to be trying to do is relative to the meeting at 6, and I want your feedback on this, but we're going to try to get those meetings done, within an hour. And so the goal would be to start, as appropriately, put more information on consent so we can get through those meetings within an hour as appropriately, so we can get to the special meeting at 7 p.m. The reason why we're agendizing at 7 is because, as you know, as we go through this process, we will begin to get more public input, more input from stakeholders. And so we want to make sure that we're providing access to the public, access to the stakeholders, all of this information. We want to make sure it's clear and available. That's why we're not necessarily burying it like in the irregular business agenda packets, like it has its own separate meeting, its own separate agenda packet. So that's how we plan to engage with all of you as we start going through this process. So I'm going to pause there before I get into the rest of this presentation and just getting any feedback or input or questions on how we plan to engage with you on the process.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yeah, that seems fine to me, but I would just like to remind you that a lot of us have council meetings that start at 7 o'clock. And I know in my city, the council meetings can go quite late. So we are accustomed to that. So what I'm saying is don't throw too much on consent, or I might just start pulling some things that I have questions about.
And Commissioner Kelly, as you're exactly right. I think if we do put more on consent, I welcome, if there's questions, just pull it off, right? I mean, that's 100%. I don't want to, avoid getting your input and feedback on items as we go through this process. I think it's just an opportunity to help streamline things a little bit. But I appreciate the commitment and the enthusiasm to stay here late. And
Yes, Commissioner Oberger.
And I think that was well said by Commissioner Kelly. I just was going to express the concern that, you know, just like looking at this agenda tonight and the conversation, and what time is it right now? It's already 7:30. And the items, I do think it's important to have robust and transparent discussion, right? And so, so I guess I was internally questioning, could we really start at 7? Just because even if you do put things on consent, if something has to be discussed, it has to be discussed. So I appreciate the efforts to streamline, but I guess I'll believe it when I see it. I guess maybe I talk too much too and have too many questions, but yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be married to actually like starting at 7.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, Commissioner Obringer. I think 7's a goal, but I think 7 is really for the public. You know, so this meeting can potentially go an hour and a half, and then when this meeting's done, we would start the next meeting. But the idea is that we agendize at 7, so that way the public, the stakeholders, you know, they all arrive at the time. So that way we're not starting potentially at 7 or 6:30 if we do get through items quickly, and then the public is not here. You know, so I think the idea here is to like schedule at 7, so that way the public and stakeholders know and can expect what time to be here every month to provide their input. So it's really for them. And I think what we'll do is if a meeting runs over, if it takes an hour and a half, then so be it. The meeting takes an hour and a half, and then we'll take a small break and then shift into the next meeting. But at least we know that the public and stakeholders are here.
Any other questions for Tim or comments?
Let's go. Let's go. Ready to go. All right. Obviously, we're going to be flexible, so obviously welcome your input, feedback through the entire process. So first up is really thinking about, you know, over the next 3 years, we really wanted to kind of talk about, you know, kind of core principles and objectives, you know, for this expenditure plan. Obviously, I think our key objective here is that we're creating a transportation expenditure plan that is supported by the public, and obviously that's going to be done, you know, through research and meaningful engagement with the public and the stakeholders as well as the cities. And then as we go through this process, as we know, there's going to be a lot of discussion on certain topics and procedures and policies and processes and so forth. And so these principles are really going to be somewhat of our North Star, you know, so as we're going through this process, you know, as there potentially is going to be kind of tug and pull and push and pull on certain trade-offs relative to what we're discussing. And, you know, these will come into play so we can kind of point to these and make sure that we're still aligned, you know, as we kind of go through this process. So these are really just kind of shared core principles. And, you know, we're not making a set decision tonight. We're asking for input. They are called living principles because we have a lot of listening to still do with the public and stakeholders. So these principles could potentially change over time as we kind of go through this process. But this is our initial kind of proposal to the board. And again, this is again an opportunity for you all to kind of shape the process. And so I'll walk through these individually, but I think we all, you know, based on the feedback we've gotten at the Authority Board workshop and from previous meetings, I think everyone has been very adamant that this really needs to be public first and a community first approach, particularly because of our main goal is to really have a TEP that's going to be supported by the public. I think the second thing that we've also heard that's very important for the board is to keep things really simple, right? Simple for the public to understand, simple for the board to understand, and keep the messaging simple, the framework simple, easy to follow. And I think that's really important because as we start thinking about establishing accountability measures and transparency, if it's not easy, if the public is not able to follow it, if it's not simple, then the public and stakeholders are not going to be able to follow it, and which will lead to confusion and lead to potential disagreement or potential opposition. And so I think keeping it simple is, I think, really key. The other thing that we kind of heard from you from previous meetings is really applying a countywide lens. I think, as you all know, there are a lot of stakeholders in Contra Costa County. We have 19 cities, we have, you know, 5 transit operators, we have 24 accessible transportation providers, we have 3 rail providers, we have a ferry service. There are a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of needs. And I think it's really important that we're approaching this TEP with really a countywide lens to really meet the benefits of the county and meet the needs of our residents. And I think Our mission is to be the countywide transportation agency, and our goal is to really making sure that we're making decisions that really support the county and the region as a whole, from end to end of the county. And so really focusing on that countywide lens. The next one is really establishing accountability measures, and I think this is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I think all of us know that as we're going into this, is going to be really a need to really discuss, performance measures, KPIs, and also accountability measures as we continue to look at how measure the future expenditure plan funding will be spent, which may require reporting or requirements, et cetera, potentially on the funding. And I think that'll be decided as we kind of go through this process relative to governance, policy, and input that we receive from you, the public, the cities, and the stakeholders. And the last one, and I think it's really important to kind of bookend this, is we've got community first approach, and then on the last part of this, we have focus on outcomes. And I think that's a real key metric, I think, for all of us. I know you've heard me talk about this quite often in terms of, making sure we've taken a performance-based approach, really grounding ourselves in data, grounding ourselves in performance and key metrics, and outcomes as we think about the funding and how we plan to allocate funds, and how we identify programs, and really making sure we're getting a high return on investment from local sales tax dollars, and focused on those outcomes. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's any input or any questions on these principles. And again, we tried to keep it to 5 just to keep it simple in that motto. I mean, I can't even, so that was kind of what we tried to do here, is just keep it really simple. Any questions or comments?
Vice Chair Nowak?
One of the things that I think is important is not only keeping the simple at the beginning, but the accountability measures. I recall the last measure, the accountability measures were more complicated than half the other stuff. And I think the public wants to know that there's accountability, but it can be very simple for them to understand. There's going to be accountability, there's going to be an oversight committee or whatever, but keep it at that. I think there were pages of accountability last go around, and it was very difficult to read. So I just want to comment, when I saw keep it simple, I want it not only there, but also in the accountability section.
Other comments, questions? Representative Worth? Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Tim, thank you very much for this proposal. And it's kind of a somber time to be looking at this in light of what we heard about on Thursday. But that's for another agenda item. So one of the things that occurred to me, and I think having received many phone calls in the last 5 days after the BART presentation, was that people are very concerned about their personal experience, and these are from people all over the county. The transportation is a very personal thing. It affects their daily life, whether they're going to school, going to work, going shopping, whatever they're doing, transportation is key, whether it's transit or bicycles or freeways or whatever. So I think it's in looking at this grid, I agree with this grid. I think it's a great concept of approaching it, keeping it simple, but I think we really have to focus on how we're going to meet the needs of our residents in our county. And really focus on that, as opposed to sort of a broad kind of planner's concept of what a measure might look like. Because I really think that the point about community first, it's a little bit confusing in looking at thank you for the letter that you wrote, because I was trying to clarify community first and then the countywide lens. I see it rather than sort of this top-down thing, that it's an organic sort of coming from the local communities, local users of our systems, and how do we make their lives, how do we improve their lives? Because I think those are the kinds of very tough questions that people are going to be making in the next few years. So looking at, the opportunities for transit, for cities, for all the things that we're going to do in this measure, to really focus on those needs.
Do you feel like, based on what I'm hearing, I mean, do you agree that the community first approach kind of captures that? Because I think that's kind of the intent of the community first approach, is like making sure we're focusing on the community, the customer experience, the personal experience, like really focusing on the rider, the user. I mean, that's really what we're trying to capture with this community-first approach. Do you feel like it needs to be modified, or do you feel like it does it address that to you?
No, I think it does. I thought I'd pulled up your letter. I think it really does. Then there's that other additional line that talks about sort of a countywide approach that'll consider local needs. I would sort of flip the priorities and say, meet the local needs. And I'm not talking about just the return to source. I'm talking about everything. All the programs and projects that we have that will all relate to the voters, to the people who are using the system. Yeah. So that would be, might be a fine-tuning nuance, but I think it would be important, especially where we are right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think apply a countywide lens, I think, is really to your point about balancing the countywide perspective with those local needs, and really marrying those two things up. And I think, like, for example, a good example of that would be, CCTA develops a countywide plan, particularly, like, for example, the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. The Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan, the board approves that, the board adopts that. It kind of sets kind of the vision and kind of the guidance and the priorities. And so then what happens is that, when you're out there basically doing a call for projects or doing a call for funding, that, it would be important to make sure that, we're getting the feedback, to your point, Representative Worth, we're hearing from the local needs, but also balancing the regional priorities between the two. Does that make sense?
It does, and I can see that. One of the challenges that we came into trying to do that was the first time we implemented this countywide bicycle funding plan. And one of the things that Contra Costa has done really well is we have the percentages of dollars that go to each one of the regions. So people feel when they go to the ballot box that they're getting their fair share. We've got a methodology, we know how the money is allocated. What happened was there was a conflict between countywide, and it's not there's no one size fits all. So what happened is the first round, one of the sub-regions didn't get any bike projects. That was, now hopefully nobody's going to remember that from way back, because I don't see that's going to happen again. But it's very important that we ensure that there is sort of this geographic equity, and that there are the ability for all the local communities to feel like they are getting their fair share of projects and funding and programs. So I think that's going to be the test that people are going to really want to be assured that that's happening. So that's kind of the challenge of a countywide perspective, and then the differences within the county in terms of the variety of factors that lend themselves to different kinds of projects, larger population, smaller population, larger geographic distribution, more compact, all the things that play out. So, but I just think that, again, the challenge with a program like this is it's not just putting it on the books and implementing it. We've got to get the members of our communities to reach into their pockets and say, okay, this meets my needs, this resonates, and I'm willing to put my resources into making it happen. So, and I think we have a very good opportunity to pass this. I have no doubt about it, because I think that there's a fantastic track record that this authority has, and that the cities have of delivering projects and programs. And it's leveraged money. I mean, the example that we have just tonight, we talked about the signalization program in Concord, and it's going to be playing out in the other parts of our county, shows that we're able to take these resources and go out and gather additional funding. But I think the local focus is going to be really critical right now, and maybe a different kind of change of attitude in the last 25 years, probably, maybe the last, yeah.
Am I on? Just to comment on that really, really quick. I think that's what's really important about this, and I'll get into it on the next slide, but that's what's really important about this phase one engagement listening that we've put up in the scope is, like, we plan in the next 3 to 4 months, the goal is to get into the community, get into the public, and really understand, the public's needs. What are they, to your point, What are their interests? What are their priorities? What do they want, right, in the public, you know? And to your point about, you know, making sure that everyone, that they feel like their needs are being met with this expenditure plan, making sure that they feel like there's something in it for them, right, in terms of the expenditure plan. And I think that's really important. And doing that, I think through the engagement process, we will do that kind of grounds up approach, you know, and then I think what'll happen as we go through that process, then the board can kind of set the regional priorities as we kind of evaluate or hear what are those local needs.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yeah, I want to echo what Amy has said here. You know, as I've talked to people in my own community, people vote for what they see every day. And if they're going to vote for this, they're going to say, what's in it for me? What's in it for my city? What's in it for my area? What's in it for my region? And so it's really important that everybody get a piece of the pie and know that they're going to get something, you know, whether it's bicycle lanes or, you know, more money for bus routes, for the popular routes that really get them, you know, from where they live down to, you know, the community college or something like that. So that's really, really important. And, you know, since I've been on CCTA, I travel all around the county here. Before I was on CCTA, I didn't do that. I just stayed in my corner. And I bet most people just kind of stay in their corner because they're working and living and so forth. And we have to recognize that everybody's only going to see what they see in their particular area. They don't travel like I do. And we have different kinds of topography. We have a lot of flat areas, we have hills. We have parts of our county that are bordered by water and other parts that are not. So we have to understand all of these different regional differences. And that's why I think the regions are really important and addressing the needs of everybody in every sector of the county. So when we say apply a countywide lens, I get what you're talking about, but we've kind of got to promise people something's going to come to you in your area, in your city.
Agreed. We all agree. The whole team agrees with that.
Commissioner Arnrich?
Yeah, I hear everything, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. What's before us are 5 things. Those 5 things there are to make sure we don't get hijacked. The last 2 measures failed because we got hijacked by special interest. Really hijacked. Because they said, well, I'll be against it, I'll do it. This is a way to say, if you have an idea, you're a special interest group, how does it fit into this? So we can do that. It gives us an ability as those decision makers to do that. All the other stuff about equity, we have a really good track record. Go back to Measure J. We're sitting here today, not on the 2 failed ones. We're here for Measure J. Measure J, I sat in the outside on committees, and it was about that equity and the regional equity, how we did it. There are donor areas. One of the donor areas donates a huge portion, does not get the money back. We've already figured out how to do that. So, you know, let's stick within what worked. In Measure J, everybody got something out of it. The other measures, there was always one area who didn't. It wasn't the board's fault. It was just the nature of the process. It's incumbent upon us and to hear from the public that what are the expectations? How can we deliver it? The projects we had before were very clear. Build Highway 4, do E-BART extension, build the Caldecott Tunnel, put the express lanes in 680. The projects drove it. What wasn't really clear to the average voter was all that other money that was spent on programs. Some people, special groups knew about that. There were a few big items in there. But what drove the success of that, everybody said in South County, yeah, I want the Caldecott Tunnel. Everybody in East County said, yeah, please, fix the highway. And it worked. But guess what? There's more growth. We all have more growth. So it needs more work and attention. But this is not the solution. It's just a way to take all those projects, make sure it fits so that it does do the equity, that it does work for the whole county. But Measure J is a really good model, much better than Measure C was even, because Measure J made transformative changes in our county. It reinforced the growth issues that weren't quite as strong as in the past. build upon that, use this just as a way to filter those project ideas, the special interest groups, so that we can have the ability to make a decision. Well, that doesn't quite fit all, but by the way, what do you think is important for your region? We're not there yet about what's important. This is just a guide rail to help filter that through. And I think it's fairly simple, straightforward, and KISS, KIS, keep it simple, you know what? Don't get complicated. Not yet.
Commissioner Burgess?
It will come, even if you don't want it.
I'm going to go back to what Commissioner Worth said. You're still a commissioner, even though you're, I always, Amy, what Amy said. People are skeptical. There is lack of trust. There's fear. There's uncertainty. So I think going back to that community first approach is really, really, really key. I grew up in Contra Costa County. As a little girl, I watched BART become the thing. I remember all the oleanders along 680 and 24, 2 lanes. I remember the drive-in over here and, the farms in Walnut Creek. So I've seen the growth, and I see the amount of progress that's been made in transportation. And I've also seen how well-respected CCTA is on a national and I think international level. So I think this is an agency that's well-respected and is really should be able to get the support of the voters. But I think it goes back to, my little corner that I represent is not caught up with the other parts of the county. My son just moved to San Ramon, and I saw the beautiful bridge, and I was like, gosh, that's gorgeous. And then I thought, we don't have gorgeous bridges out in our neck of the woods, but we got Highway 4 built. We've got BART out there, and we want to hold on to it, and we want to expand it. So each, I know my friends in West County have other issues, Central County. And so I think going back to that community first, I don't think people are going to be thinking about the future as much as they're going to be thinking about right now, or maybe what their kids are going to be worried about as far as transportation. So I like the idea that, we're trying to think big ways, but I do think it needs to go back to community first. I think the countywide lens is kind of a automatic thing because we're all in this together, especially on the regional levels when we're working together. And I really appreciate kind of the sense of we're all in this together. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to be accountable. So those are my comments.
Juan?
Thank you, through the chair. I love what's on here in terms of these 5 guiding principles through this process. The only thing I would like to add is on the outcomes. And I think adding the word significant, I think would add a lot. So essentially focus on significant outcomes. You mentioned ROI. Obviously, there isn't enough money to do every project that every jurisdiction wants to do. So we're going to have to prioritize. And so I think when we get to that point, really having that guiding principle of, look, we need to do the ones that are going to have the most significant outcome is going to help us get to that prioritized list. I think at the end of this expenditure plan, our residents are going to want to, and taxpayers are going to want to walk away with the understanding that, wow, this made an impact, right? And so that's where that significant term comes in. I know we're going to do it as a board. I have a lot of faith, but I think having this, since this is going to be a public-facing document, and adding the word significant adds a lot for me, and hopefully my colleagues agree.
Any feedback from the rest of the board on that, adding the word significant to focus on outcomes? I'm seeing a lot of head nodding, so perfect. Any other feedback on the principles?
Commissioner Obringer?
Thank you. And I'm not suggesting we change any additional language, but again, just for us, again, it was revelatory for me, I think like back in December or November, whenever we were talking about this being a congestion management agency. And I think no matter what part of the county we're talking about, people particularly, I know I hear it when we're having our affirming fair housing conversations. I do get the feedback from the public about literally hearing the phrase, "we're choked with traffic." So I think that as we're communicating with folks, anything that we can do to help them understand how we are going to address that congestion, manage that congestion, improve or reduce that congestion, I think will resonate with people because that's something that we share across the county, the different areas of the county.
Anything else on this before Tim moves on? Okay.
Well, I really appreciate your feedback, so thank you. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate the discussion on this. And again, like these are living principles, and we'll continue to, use them as our North Star, but continue to modify as we continue to listen to our public and cities and stakeholders and also the board. The next couple items are really more administrative to really walk you through the overall process and journey that we're about to go through over the next couple years. The TEP framework, I just really wanted to walk you through that, and I've taken a few notes here, but the first step in the TEP framework is actually to kind of look back at Measure J and really evaluate all of the existing projects and programs and really understand, what works, what's not working, where are significant outcomes in Measure J, where did we not necessarily get significant outcomes, and really looking at that return on investment. And so there are 28 different programs, in Measure J, and so we'll be evaluating all of those, and we'll be doing actually a deep dive into that. We're planning on bringing all that data and information to you at the May Authority Board workshop. The other part of the TEP framework is really storyboarding the whole process. And so tomorrow we have a full day workshop with the entire TEP team to kind of start outlining what that potential storyboard might look like, and obviously we'll bring that to the Authority Board. The other part is, we did a little bit this at the November Authority Board workshop, but the existing conditions. I think it's really important, to your point, Commissioner Obringer, about where's the congestion, where is the most delay, where are the highest impacts, where are people going, what are the needs, in the county, and start looking at those needs and how are we going to evaluate them, how we're going to prioritize them, and how we're going to create a framework around that, in terms of how we're going to do this evaluation analysis. Another part of the framework is going to be identifying investment policies as well as investment categories. And so investment categories might look like, high-level core categories around, accessible transportation or, congestion management. And I think you might recall at the November Authority Board workshop where we were looking at the transformative visions, and the transformative visions were really kind of an outline or a potential framework in terms of how we could shape, the TEP framework, and tying the CTP with the TEP process. Also, what we want to do is look at the methodologies, look at the components, and then also, again, like I said, define the evaluation process, the prioritization process, all these things, and the methodologies that go through that. So that's the framework. So the framework kind of helps define the rest of this. As you start diving into the TEP, and that's the second line here, we start looking and analyzing the programs. We start looking at trade-offs. We actually start rolling up our sleeves and start looking at what happens if we actually make investments here versus here, and looking at those trade-offs. And so, and we'll start actually defining, potential allocations of funds. So as we kind of go through this process, the way it typically begins, and this is how Measure J was built, is we do a revenue estimate, right? So that revenue estimate in 2004 dollars was $2 billion. And then that $2 billion was then distributed by population and lane miles, which defined how much funding each subregion was going to get, right? So that's a methodology in which you would develop a framework for the expenditure plan. And so we will, come to the board and talk about options in terms of how we plan to define, what that framework would look like in terms of defining, what does geographic equity look like? What does fair share look like? What is that framework going to look like? And then the other thing we'll start looking at is defining specific major programs and projects. I think it's important to note that this measure is potentially a 20, 25, 30-year measure, which will be defined by the board. But I think as Commissioner Burgess mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty for the next 25 years, a lot of uncertainty. And I think we need to really focus on how we're going to build in both identifying major projects and programs that meet the needs of the county, meet the needs of the voters, and meet the needs of the public, but then also maintain some level of flexibility to be able to shift, I will be honest with you, Measure J, there wasn't a whole lot of flexibility as you think about what we're doing with Gomentum and AVs and innovation. I mean, no one was really contemplating autonomous vehicles back in 2000. And so now we're here, and we are able to, based on, the federal grants we've gotten, the state grants we've gotten, all of the revenues we've gotten from Gomentum Station, these are the things that have been funding our innovation program for the last, almost 10 years now, because there was not a whole lot of flexibility in Measure J to fund innovative projects and programs. And so building that flexibility in it as we prepare for the future, as we think about eVTOLs, electric flying, takeoff, landing vehicles, and we start thinking about, autonomous vehicles and all these things, and who knows what might happen in the next 20, 25 years. But I think it's important that we set flexibility and prepare for that uncertainty. And I think the other part of the TEP is keep it simple, right? I think the important part of the TEP that I think where we really missed the mark in 2020, and this is Commissioner Nowak's point, it was very complicated, right? There was pages and pages of policies, pages and pages of programs, pages and pages of corridors, and we really need to keep this thing extremely simple. And I'll give you a few examples. Like right now in Measure J, I know for County Connection, we keep track of about 4 or 5 different individual programs, maybe even 6 different funding programs. Programs that get funded to County Connection at the county-wide level, sub-regional level, and all in other areas in the measure, right? So it really, as you think about all these 28 different programs, that also can get confusing, and it does, and it also provides opportunities for confusion, and also making sure we're putting in the necessary resources and staff time to be transparent as we meet in terms of establishing those accountability measures. My screen just went blank. That means I'm talking too much. And then going down to the next one, policy and guidance. Policy and guidance is really going to be focused on the policies at which guide investment over the next 20, 25, 30 years. And so some of the policy requirements that we'll be talking about will be transit policy, the livable streets policy, equity, safety, climate. So these are some of we introduced these policies at the workshop last November. So starting to build upon that and identifying which of those policies should be incorporated into the expenditure plan, which one should not. And so coming up with that governance structure, about how decision-making is going to happen, how the policies are going to be defined, are all part of, that policy and guidance. And then getting into the governance structure, and governance structure is just decision-making. How are we making decisions in the future? How are we looking at, and I think one of the things we want to do is look at statewide research. We want to look at some of our peers in the state, look at what's happening across the globe and across the nation, and think about how can we keep this simple, right? How do we simple, transparent, and easy to administer? And so thinking about the existing conditions and how that looks in the existing measure and expenditure plan, but also be able to review and analyze that governance structure, and again, what's working, what's not working, and then also discuss options and present those options to the authority board as we develop the framework and the structure of the future expenditure plan. Next up is engagement, and knowing this is a community-first approach, this is probably the most important thing on the board, or on the slide. And I can tell you that there's a significant amount of engagement that's going to be built into this. There's 3 rounds of engagement, as noted here on the slide. And I'm not going to go through each of these. I think they're pretty self-explanatory as they're laid out here relative to the process. But we will be engaging with you. I've already kind of outlined how we're going to do that. we'll be engaging with the cities, and so we're going to the Public Managers Association to meet with all the city managers next month to kind of talk to them more about how we plan to engage with the cities. More to come on that. I've also personally have reached out to the majority of all the city managers in Contra Costa County to set up individual meetings with them to get feedback on the process. I've also reached out to trans operators, and so we also will be reaching out to our stakeholders. And within the stakeholder structure, there'll be a series of meetings, and we'll come back to the board in terms of how we plan to define all the stakeholders and how we plan to engage all those stakeholders. But a big part of this is we do plan to have like a CBO ambassador program. I know we plan to meet with the trans operators on a monthly basis. We already have a monthly cadence with them, which will be the table setting and the table in which we engage with the trans operators on a monthly basis to discuss the building of the expenditure plan. And then from a public engagement standpoint, there's going to be pop-up events, surveys, public materials, focus groups, polling, community workshops, webinars, tremendous amount of engagement over the next 2 years, with the public that's going to be taking place. And all of the things I just mentioned will take place in all 3 of those orange bars, So we have a lot of work to do that's coming up. I mean, the public, because it's a community first approach, we want to get out into the public as soon as possible, start listening to them and understanding what their needs are. And then alongside all of this is really obviously very like a TEP brand and design in terms of what everything's going to look like. So that's the engagement piece. So that's what we're about to embark on, over the next 2 years. So I'm going to pause there and see if any questions you might have or any input you might have into the overall process. And again, this is going to be ongoing as we kind of go through the process.
Tim's gonna know what I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Yeah, he knows. My concern with some of the timeline is, the SB 63 that comes up in November. And for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want the public confused. And any sort of discussion on transportation prior to the November, I don't want the public to get confused. And I mentioned this to Tommy Clifford when I met with him. If you want to understand what's going on in the cities, meet with the elected officials, because they can distinguish right now between, this type of measure and the measure and SB 63. The public cannot necessarily. Just because it will get confusing, the messages they're hearing about SB 63 versus the messages here. And the other piece of that is if SB 63 doesn't pass, all of this goes away, right? So all this prioritization of this TEP would go away, because if all our, if the measure doesn't pass and rail takes priority on TDA, all our bus services are hit significantly. And so then it's a whole different ballgame for us. And I would hate for us to spend so much time on a TEP that automatically gets destroyed if SB 63 doesn't pass. And it's really important. So I think if you want to communicate to electeds and city managers that can understand the difference, I think that's great. If you go out to the public, I think you'll get the public confused. The public will then go vote in SB 63 because they're thinking, oh, great, we're going to get all this stuff. And that SB 63 is not going to deliver on what we're telling them. And then they're going to say, well, I'm not getting anything I voted on. And then we come out with a measure, and they're like, I thought we just voted on that 2 years ago. And I think that gets extremely confusing. I think we've got to be very, very careful with our public outreach prior to SB 63 going through. So that's my comments.
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Nowak.
Nomad.
Sorry late here. So Commissioner Nowak, yeah, we understand the need to coordinate the messaging, I think, with SB 63. I think, our consultant team is working with that consultant team, and so I think it's really important. We've been weighing in and discussing exactly, how they plan the message, their timelines, et cetera. And so to your point, I think that's why this engagement with the public needs to happen now and is early, so that way we can coordinate the messaging, you know, and making sure we're getting that input that we need. And then what happens is, as you can kind of tell from the orange bar, I mean, the goal is to really, you know, be in the field between now and summertime, and then basically 63 would be in the field like in summertime and basically to November.
But how does that help us if we go out to the public and say we want wider roads and we want this and this, and SB 63 is not going to deliver on it, and they're not going to know the difference. The public's not going to know the difference between what we go out and talk about early. SB 63 goes out, and they're not going to know the difference, the public. I mean, just knowing how involved the public typically is, if they're not very engaged in this process, they're not going to know the difference. And if we go first and then SB 63 doesn't deliver on that, that's going to hurt us going out 2 years later when they're thinking they should have gotten that 2 years prior. So I don't know about going out earlier unless you avoid the public and go out to the elected officials and city managers and those stakeholders that really can distinguish the difference beside the public. Because SB 63 isn't going to deliver on what the public's asking for locally, right? I mean, they'll hopefully keep BART running and things like that, but they're not going to be able to deliver on, you know, extending BART further or those kind of issues. And then I think people have a negative thought when it comes up to our measure. So it's very concerning that if we go out to the public at all prior to 63, the general public, I should say, before SB 63 goes through.
Yeah, let me do more of a deep dive. Maybe this is something we can talk about next month, and we can talk about the strategy behind all of this, because I think the team is working on the strategy. We hear you loud and clear, you know. I don't know how, sorry. We're concerned if we don't get any input from the public, we're not going to be able to really achieve the goals of what we're trying to achieve with this expenditure plan. And I think that, I think we can address, I think, the messaging, I'm hoping we can address the messaging pretty clearly, you know, in terms of, you know, because what they're voting on in 26 and what they're going to be voting on potentially in 28 are two different things. And that's going to be 2 years from now, you know, 3 years from now.
Well,
Most people in Pleasant Hill don't even know who the city council members are.
Yeah, but.
A lot of them don't, so I'm not sure how they're going to split between SB 63 and a Measure J extension. You know, it's just, if the public is relatively happy, they don't pay attention to this stuff.
Yeah, but I think to your
We're all turning our mics on.
I think no one wants to hear me talk. But I think to your very point, I think what they vote on now versus what they 28, to your very point, like, there's going to be like so much time between those two ballot measures that the two can be completely unrelated.
Well, so.
But that's the strategy, right? Yeah.
Just because it's been historically the Ken and Sue show on at times. So, and I don't want to, but believe me, I share Sue's
there is
fear.
separation this week.
There is a little separation, but that doesn't change the dynamicness though. No, and I share the same fears, but I also think that if the messaging is right and we're focused in on transportation, even if it's the community, they're going to be, oh, wait, November, SB 63, we just did a meeting, we just talked about transportation, I told them everything I want, and then potentially it'd be the opposite, right? That they would support 63, then we would have the challenge of coming back 2 years later and saying, oh, we're asking for more. But I don't, like I say, if the messaging were clear and not, because I don't want to be deceitful, but again, if we come out and say, look, we're looking at renewing Measure J, while SB 63 is now on your November ballot, and say, what are we gonna get? In the meantime, all our operators are at risk. They might not pass, so it really needs to be thoughtful. But I don't know that the answer is to not engage the public in some way, because we can gauge more of their need and gain support for 63. It's a gamble, I think, either way.
Yeah, I would like to echo what Sue says here. I think there is confusion. And, you know, we as elected officials, we are in contact with our public all the time, and staff is not in contact in the same kind of way. So if we're going to be doing some kind of messaging before it goes out, I'd like to see what the messaging is, frankly, before we unleash the consultants out there. Because as Sue said, everybody could get really confused. You know, so again, I think talking to electeds, all of the electeds here in the cities, at the RTPCs, talking to the operators, talking to anybody who really understands as the city managers, but I want to know what the messaging is going to be to the average person before it goes out there.
Commissioner Burgess?
So, yeah, the thing that I'm concerned about, that Sue brought up, is it going to confuse people? The other part of it is, if it doesn't pass, does that change our plan? And so does that waste time? Does that waste time by, going in and getting all these, aspirations for our communities while this is being confusing and then having to start over because something didn't pass? That's the first thing. The second thing I would lean in on at this time would be the internal folks that we're talking about. The regional subcommittees, they've been working on this. They've been talking about it. I understand talking to the city managers, but some are brand new and some have been around. They all have different understandings, context, ideas. And that's why the regional planning is so important. And then I was hoping you would also lay out who the stakeholders are, because there could be assumptions of what you mean. Who are the stakeholders?
Voters. Yeah, maybe I can address the question about who are the stakeholders. So we've kind of defined the stakeholder box that really is representative of all the needs in Contra Costa County, right? That's kind of how we've laid out the stakeholder box. I mean, again, keeping this really simple in terms of engagement and communication, but the stakeholders include the trans operators, they include the CBOs, they include like the advocates, they include, the businesses, labor, et cetera. So all of those groups are in the stakeholder group.
Is BART a stakeholder?
Bart's in the trans operator kind of group, yeah. And so the idea is, and we'll have a better understanding of how we plan to engage in each of those groups, because in the 2020 measure, so there was a lot of ways to engage with the stakeholders. Like in 2016, the board formed an expenditure plan advisory committee, which was a Brown Act committee that basically had all the stakeholders at the table providing feedback. When we were doing the measure in 2020, most of the stakeholders did not like that process. So we basically moved it more into like ad hoc groups. And so we had like an advocate group. We were talking with business separately. We were talking with labor separately. We were talking with the operators separately. Like, that's probably how we're going to conduct the stakeholder engagement. And, we may meet with other stakeholders more than others, quite frankly, as we kind of determine the need. And, to Commissioner Armidge's point, we want to make sure that this whole thing's not getting hijacked as well, And so I think it's going to be important, for example, like the trans operators, they're an important stakeholder. We need to meet with them on a regular basis. So we'll meet with them every single month and engage with them every single month on the expenditure plan, right? But then, on others, we may engage with them in a different way or based on when we need to engage with them relative to this overall process, And so, but we will discuss that plan in terms of stakeholder engagement at a future meeting to get your input on. But the goal is to kind of it's kind of everybody else, in the stakeholder box.
So as far as engagement goes, I feel like I wouldn't want us to confuse the voters at this time. I would want us to maybe do more internal outreach to get that information so that we can then wait to see what the outcome of this is, and then we could then come up with a plan with a little more certainty.
Can I just ask a question? So one of our core principles is community first. And so I think the important thing here is engaging with the public and putting their needs first ahead of the stakeholders.
I think you'll get that from the elected officials, because that's who we represent. And I think I think you'll get less confusion if you get it from those of us that deal with the public calling us every day when there's a, miserable intersection, or they're missing some type of, transportation impact, or there are not enough buses, or whatever the situation is. Most of us are probably more familiar with that. You will get, the local public will be, I need a crosswalk at my intersection and things like that, that I think, I'm just saying, it is less confusing if you start with us.
Yeah.
And the RTPCs too, but I think starting with the elected officials, we certainly know what the issues are in our towns or cities.
I would have to agree with that, Tim, because I do think that, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, it's certainly something I perceived from the last election especially, and the one before that, is that, some of the biggest cheerleaders we're gonna need engaging in the communities to make this, successful are gonna be the local electeds. And I think the local electeds and the city managers and as Sue said, their sophistication level, but they also know the people in their in each of our communities. I mean, every community has a sophisticated group of residents, right? I mean, some of the residents are more sophisticated than some of us, okay? They come in and present us with all kinds of issues. But I think that, getting that connection with the 19 city local electeds, I think is going to be critical. I mean, just really critical. And I don't see the downside to kind of prioritizing that. I mean, and the other thing I would want to ask you, and I think we're all very interested and probably all very willing, and that is, how do you and the TEP team see all of us engaging in the process? And I don't mean just in the room having a special meeting. I mean, obviously, we have the ability to be out and about and in public and meeting with people. And is that part of the engagement scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually my next slide, actually. So I will get to that for sure. That's my next slide. But I don't think we disagree with that the cities are obviously really important. The elected officials are really important. I mean, that's how we're setting this up. We've got the board, we've got the cities, we've got the stakeholders, we've got the public. What we're hearing from our consulting team is that it's really important to get input from the public. That's what we're hearing from our consulting team. So, I think it's important that we listen, but I know you all have direction. So I think what we should do to kind of discuss this further is we can kind of come up with a proposal and bring this back to the board next month and talk about, to Commissioner Carlson's point, like, let's talk about the messaging, and Commissioner Kelly's point, like, what's the messaging? Like, I think let us bring something back to all of you next month to talk about the engagement, talk about the messaging, talk about the proposal, and get feedback on that from all of you. Because I think what we're hearing from our consultant is that this public engagement, we need to kind of set a stake in the ground early in the process to know where we're at. If we don't know where we're at, we can't know how we're going to move forward.
I think it would be important for that team maybe to come here and hear us rather than go through you.
Yeah.
So if you can bring some of those team members here so they can hear directly from us our concerns and we can hear what their concerns are, I think that might be helpful.
I'm pretty sure they're all listening.
If you're all listening out there, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think, and I think it would be very valuable to all of us to hear what their perspective is on how we keep people from getting confused.
Right.
Because voters get confused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can't stress this enough. I think we need to see where we're at. If we don't know where we're at, we don't know how to get to where we need to go. Right? And so this.
Right. We may know that we're in a
Well,
totally different place.
Yeah, but that's how this structure's set up, though. Like, it's set up with round one listening. We let SBC3 take its course, and then we're right out there early January, basically re-listening and talking about, what has happened, right? I mean, the structure, the scope of work and the structure has been set up to consider SB 63. I mean, we all know that 63 is very important to all of you. We know that the messaging and the coordination is really important to all of you, and so the team has put a lot of thought in terms of SB 63 and how it's going to play into the overall process.
Well, and we get a bite or two at this apple. SB 63 doesn't.
It doesn't what? Yeah, okay.
Can I go?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The one person I didn't see, the one sitting closest to me.
We'll see. Some may think so, and some may not. So I'm looking at the TEP process timeline in front of me, and round one says listening. I don't take listening as messaging. I take it as listening.
Yeah.
So if we're listening in 26, I mean, it's probably what we should be doing, finding out what our people want. I mean, and yes, we know, the electeds sitting here and in our cities know a lot of what we want. The electeds in our cities, though, got to understand it's not for the cities per se, it's for the region. SB 63 needs to be out there messaging in 2026. So that's up to them to go and message. We listen. I understand if SB 63 doesn't pass, it can cause us issues. But I also think all those that group in SB 63 caused a lot of their own issues too. And for many years didn't take care of those issues. And still probably don't really want to address those issues. So if they can't pass it, I mean, maybe we feel a burden on an extension of the sales tax, but they got to go fix their own ships. We need to figure out what our regions want, and it's not always transportation. Transit, sorry. Thank you. So, thank you.
Commissioner Arnridge?
Yeah, I agree with a little bit about what Aaron said. We're just messaging in 2026. Right, listening. Yeah, sorry. We're only listening, trying to find out what people are thinking. And truthfully, there'll be some information that may help those who are working on Prop 63. We've been in this position before. We've got hijacked twice by BART. Our consultants happen to be representing both of them. We didn't know that. It's the reality of what happened. They passed a measure when we didn't. Ours failed and theirs passed. Their big bond issue. So we are not all transit. Transit's a very small part of what this agency has been involved with historically. So while that's important, in our county, less than 10% of the people that work use transit. Of the population age from 16 to whatever the upper age is, it's listed most areas as actually less than 10%. So my point is 60% of what we do, 40% we put to capital, 60% is for programs, and a portion of that is transit. So of our population in certain regions, in order to pass this, there are some, South County will vote to help BART to get people off the road. They don't vote because they ride it, because it doesn't come to them. They have to get in their car to go someplace. And as we all know, if you get in your car, you don't get out to where you're going. And that's the world, particularly post-COVID. So this is the right process. And if we keep talking about Prop 63, we might as well shut our agency down, tell them to start planning. They have X number of years, because we won't get this done. We'll be hijacked by ourselves. That the plan, and we keep talking about what if, this is just about listening to people for the next few months, and you can see that listening goes up till November. And then we start taking actions. What do? We'll be informed by then, but if we wait to put this all up, and if you think the electeds, you weren't here the last two times then, because they didn't help. Most of our electeds, it was Amy, myself, I had one council member for hours that showed up. Nobody else. There were a handful of us. And the only people that helped market either of those were the people on this board. Our other council members, even though they all had presentations, every single 19 city had a presentation to the full council. Most of them don't remember that was a presentation. So if we think that's going to happen and it's going to happen by the elected, it will not. We have evidence 2 times in a row, 2 failed measures. So we have to focus, because we didn't before, talking to public and listening. What are your concerns? What do you want to see? Because remember, the overwhelming majority of the people that are going to vote for this don't participate in it. So those are the people we have to listen to. What is it that they would support? Like somebody says, I'll support transit because I can drive my car. While we might not like that, it's a way to help fund something that we know will provide an overall benefit. So this is a great plan. And if we just, what I hear is delay, 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 we're not going to get there. And if we think the electeds are going to solve this, we're done. It's just not. We haven't done it in the past. We don't have any, we probably have less informed people now because it's been so long since we passed the other measure. Because we actually did it 22 years ago. It was 2004 we did it. And we worked in 2003 to get it on the ballot. So we have a new generation, so we got to do a lot of listening and use that as evidence to form ourselves and our fellow council members. Say, by the way, we have council members that are different now. A lot of us, except for 1, 2, we're not necessarily working full-time, except this is what we do full-time. So our perspective on our engagement with the public is much different. You know, young man here, he has a real job and a family and stuff and has to work and works full-time. So the time commitment is very different than what we've seen in the past. So all I'm saying is, I think we support this, and with the caution, let's make sure we know. And we've heard that at every meeting. Don't interfere with Prop 63. Great. We're not in Prop 63. It's part of a vote. And if we all support it individually or whatever, that's great. But this is a path forward, and it takes a long time to do this. We need almost 2 years to get there. And if we stop, then we're right back where we were.
So,
Commissioner Kelly. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You want to go first, Jamie?
Sure, I'd be happy to. You know, I want to commend our BART director here who's tonight. After spending all day listening to that meeting on Thursday, I had great appreciation for his fine work, and we've all been talking about the impact that the current economics are going to have on transit in our region. And Thursday, everybody got to see it. They got to see it, sort of how it really plays out in terms of, and you know, we all have serious concerns about this plan, but the reality is that our voters in Contra Costa County, BART is extremely important to our regions. And as Newell pointed out, and I completely agree with what he's saying, if people will vote to support transit, whether they use it or they like supporting other people using it. Right. It's it's an element. But when you look at the history of Contra Costa County and the role that BART has played historically in our development patterns, our commute patterns, it's critical. And the problem is, the last time when we did Measure J, we weren't looking at the floor falling out from under us. So frankly, I think we need to do 2 things right now as a board. And one of the challenges when you have different agencies dealing with different issues, people think, well, they're going to take care of it. Well, the reality is our voters are, I'm sure all of you have gotten calls over the last 5 days about what's going on with BART, fear that their stations are closing, fear that they're not going to be able to get to the Oakland airport on BART, fear of what's going on. And the way it's going to play out for the transit agent, for the buses too. It's not going to stop here. This is just a tip of the iceberg. This is just the beginning. We're looking at a spiral. And so I think we have to do 2 things. We have to listen to our residents and how they feel about transit and how they feel, because when we've done all the CCTA polling, BART's at the top. BART's at the top for a variety of reasons. It's right up there in terms of investment. So we have to really engage much more in the next 9 months in talking to our voters. And we're not going to hear so much about some things other than, I can tell you what we're going to hear about from a lot of towns is they're going to be talking about this. They're going to be very fearful and very concerned about BART. And at the same time, we have to be engaged in that. We have to show the voters that this is the agency that's concerned about transportation investments for the people of Contra Costa County. And it's not talking about the future stuff, it's listening to their concerns and engaging them so that people can also be aware of how Prop 63 is going to impact our county in a very clear way, and then build it along with the region, a renewal, an extension of a renewal of our own, of the transportation measure that covers other things in the county. You know, BART's vital to our economy and to the quality of life of the people in our county. So I really think that we actually need to listen and talk, but we need to broaden what we're listening for and what we're hearing. And we will hear from the public so that we can be engaged in what their priorities are. I mean, it's like the Maslow hierarchy of needs. All of a sudden, we're back down at the beginning because people are so concerned about the impact that this economic crisis is going to have on transit. So I actually think there's a real opportunity for us and a responsibility for us to engage now, but incorporate all the things that are affecting our residents' lives relative to transportation. So we can keep the message clear so that you build success in November and then build success for when Contra Costa comes to renew a measure for the Contra Costa residents. I don't think we can do it in a vacuum. I really don't. I just think that what's on people's minds right now, I mean, you go back and look at the Measure J, we got $175 million that has gone into eBART. And looking at this plan, it goes away. So, you know, it's like, how do you, you know, I think it's a huge task, but I think that's really where we can build success overall. Because I don't know what we would do if we'd be looking in December and we don't have a transit system. So, Chris?
At the next CCTA board meeting, if we could have the consultants here, and if they could tell us what they think their messaging should be, I think that would all help us a great deal.
We were planning on doing that anyways, so that was
Yeah.
that's our goal, to come back here in April and talk about some of the engagement and get more clarity on the engagement so you all can provide input.
April or March?
I'm sorry, March.
Okay, thank you.
You're right, sorry, I'm missing a month, March.
And I think as we all talked about, it's not about messaging so much as what the process of listening is going to be. And
Yeah.
I think everybody raised obviously a lot of good points. I don't think we're that far off in our perspectives. I just think we, have concerns how it's all going to play out.
I think Amy summed it up really well. I think what you heard was what we all said, and we were all kind of on different viewpoints. You actually summed it up in the right way. We do need to listen now, and as I had said, we need to listen about what people are thinking about Prop 63.
Right.
And part of our listening is, and sharing that. What are we hearing? What do people think? Without commenting at this point, we need to listen and find out what the fears, concerns are of people. So I agree with Amy.
Yeah, and I think the timing does overlap. I mean, Amy knows this.
Yeah.
If you're going to come to Orinda today and you're going to start asking people about transportation, well, they're going to have maybe a different answer than they would have had before, by where your BART station's not here anymore. So, I think it's all going to get tangled up together somehow, and just understanding how that's going to come through, I think, is important.
And with the listening, Newell said it, but in that listening program, you can be bringing back information to SB 63.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hear about it. So that could help with that messaging.
Help us.
Yeah, we see value in terms of messaging on both sides and how we can leverage the messaging from 63 and our expenditures. There's a lot of coordination and a lot of messaging, a lot of strategy that's been put into this. So I appreciate all the input. I have one more slide. There's only 4 slides in this presentation. Only 4 slides. Okay, so on the horizon, I wasn't actually planning on spending that much time on that slide. So on the horizon. So just getting back to this, the TEP development, I think, I've already mentioned this, but we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at the benefits of Measure J, the metrics and methods which evaluate projects. We're going to start reviewing and refining some of what those expenditure plan programs and framework looks like. So that's something that we plan to discuss, I think, at the Authority Board workshop in May. I'm not going to read all from the slide here, but I think policy and guidance, as I mentioned previously, we plan to talk about the governance at the May Authority Board workshop. And then engagement, we spent a lot of time talking about this already, so I'm not going to really cover this in more depth here. But the last bullet item to getting to Chair G's comment is materials to support the board member engagement with city stakeholders and public. So there is a call to action to each and every single one of you to help make this thing successful. And I hope you all realize that. I mean, this is an important board to be on. It's a countywide board. It's actually one of the few boards you're actually going to be appointed to be asked to help support developing this expenditure plan and also support a ballot measure. And so it's going to be really important that we're engaging with you and you're engaging in your local communities. And so what we want to find out from you, and maybe a fun little exercise, is on your dais, there's a QR code. I would like for you all to take out your phones, scan the QR code. Hopefully everyone has it. White pieces of paper. White pieces of paper. Yeah, there you go.
It's all the same QR code.
And we know materials are going to be important, for all of you. And we have a lot of strategies in terms of how we want to engage with you and also how you plan to engage. But we wanted you to kind of think about, as we think about how to prioritize some of these materials and get them to you, so you can start talking about this and talking this at your city council meetings and any other event that you might be at. But we wanted to kind of prioritize this in terms of what is important to you to have and to give you like a toolbox in this. And this is primarily for you. I mean, that's why we didn't put the QR code up on the screen, but this is primarily for you and you alone. And so this will be helpful to us. It's also an interesting test in terms of how we plan to use this Menti format in future meetings. And we wanted to kind of test this and make sure it works. But we really appreciate all your input tonight, appreciate all the engagement. I thought this was a very good discussion, a good start to this journey. And like I said, we're in all of this together, and it's going to be, we've got a long road ahead of us. So I really appreciate all your input. Thank you very much. And I'll take any final comments or questions or input.
Are there any from the board? All right, at the risk of not having an hour discussion about the difference between short videos and PowerPoints, let's assume the staff can figure this out and move on. So nothing else from the board. Was there any public comment on anything Tim presented?
We received no public comment.
Okay, so that concludes our regular agenda items. We have correspondence in the packet from CCTA to Bart, as well as I'm sure they've gotten a few other pieces of correspondence. Hopefully, Representative Foley is poring over all of them. Let's see, next are the associated committee reports. We have a notice of cancellation from SWAP for the February board meeting, and everybody else is attached for anybody that wants to look at it. So anything there in any of those items that anyone has any comments, questions, anything? I don't want to miss anything. Okay, shaking heads and no. Okay, so we're going to move to the authority board and staff comments. The chair has no further comments other than I'm thrilled to be part of these engaging, robust discussions this year, and I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate the opportunity. And so now I'm moving to, are there any other commissioners? And then I will get to our representatives who I'm sure have some commentary tonight. At least if one of them doesn't, we're going to probably gang up on him. But any other commissioners that have any reports or comments before we move on? Okay, so then, how about if we turn, let's see, what order should I pick? Do you have,
go first or want to go last?
I'm happy, am I on? I'm happy to go first if you'd like.
okay.
First off, Tim, that was about 20 minutes a slide, so just gauging what the 7 o'clock TEP meetings are going to look like, just FYI.
Good example right there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes. So for those of you who are not scoring at home, Bart had our workshop last Thursday. Staff listened to and took to heart some of the feedback from myself and my colleagues on the board and worked over the weekend to retool the alternative framework. So we are removing station closures from the initial phases of any sort of measure fails approach. And then they're becoming optional as part of the secondary phase. So what we're trying to do is remove the responsibility as well from the general manager to decide what stations and how stations are selected, so that that is a board-only prerogative. So that is the direction we're moving, and I could certainly answer more questions, but in the interest of time, I didn't want to beat a dead horse this evening, but that is where we are going. Thank you.
That was important commentary. Thank you very much, Representative Foley. Would you like to go next, Representative Worth? Because this lady probably has a fair amount.
I'll go brief, but I'll tell you with appreciation to Bart for hearing the public comments that were across the board and responding. Just in that, our Contra Costa Transit operators were there in person to talk to Bart, engage with Bart, because as you know, our county transit agencies, County Connection, Tri-Delta, WestCat, and AC are all impacted by what happens to BART. And in the short term and the long term. So anyway, they've been very much involved, and also appreciate the engagement with CCTA early on in talking about as we look to developing plans. So thank you.
Vice Chair Nowak.
MTC, well, this is a little bit in the hot seat on SB 63, but I actually have nothing on SB 63 tonight, beside what I said earlier. But on the other hand, TOC will be at the commission next Wednesday, and hopefully we are finalizing TOC on Wednesday. That is my hope. There will still be probably a lot of discussion. But the biggest hot button is the rent stabilization piece. But as I've said to a lot of people, that is a small piece of the grand total of TOC. It's really a small piece, but we get so much, so many people with very emotional viewpoints on rent stabilization when it's really only 4 points out of 100 on the TOC policy. So I'm hoping we can focus on really the overall policy, some of the tweaks we have made in response to what a lot of people have said and commented. We think we've made it more of an incentive program than a club you over the head with something program. We think we have made some changes that make it a bit easier for many jurisdictions. So, and also the incentive timeframe is for 18 months out. It's not immediate. Everybody was very concerned that TOC was going to get tied to OBAG right away. It is not. It will not be. The trigger point won't be for 18 months, and it'll be a separate call for projects under a separate set of money set apart. So hopefully a lot of people can breathe a bit easier on that. We think it's still really important for a lot of Plan Bay Area 2050's goals on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, improving transit, and the result of that. But hopefully Wednesday we can get this done without being a 24-hour meeting. But it will probably be long anyway. that's all my brain can function on today, right now, for MTC. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Given that Representative Anderson isn't here, I'll turn to our other two county supervisors and see if you have any quick.
Anderson's just MTC as well, so.
Okay.
Anderson is
Oh, okay.
MTC representative.
Sorry about that. I must have forgotten that in the, so we'll forget about the county. All right, yes, but Tim is the next one on here.
Yeah, I'll be really brief. The first thing I want to do is really recognize Terry Ann. It is her 10-year work anniversary for CCTA. And I think Terry Ann does an exceptional job of keeping all of us organized, and she's very well supported by a great team as well. And I think through their work and through her work, I mean, she has been really guiding this authority very well over the last 10 years. I think I was not here 10 years ago, but my understanding is that a lot of our administrative processes and procedures were kind of needed more clarity. And I think she's done a really outstanding job kind of bringing clarity to a lot of our administrations and processes, which we all have gotten used to, and I think sometimes we probably take for granted. But I wanted to congratulate Terry Ann on her 10-year work anniversary, just for all the exceptional work and service for CCT over the last 10 years. So, one more round.
Yeah, thank you, Terry Ann.
The other thing I want to do is on Friday, it's Government Communicators Day, and so I wanted to really recognize Lindy and Mike. I don't know if Mike's in the audience, but Lindy's here to take recognition of just the great work that they do. And they do, I mean, these folks are like on the ground, every day, listening to the public, carrying our story, messaging our story, listening to the public, and really creating the messaging and branding of CCTA. And I think, one thing Lindy, one thing she's really proud of is this new logo, right? I mean, she really led that process, the procedures around that, and you all have now a fantastic pin. And I hope that you take pride and proudness in terms of wearing that pin wherever you are when you're talking about CCTA. And this is the first step of us putting you to work, is to wear that pin wherever you're at, to really represent CCTA and talk about what you're doing here at CCTA. But I wanted to congratulate Lindy and Mike for all the great work they're doing and supporting the authority. So big round of applause for them as well. So, and I'm in a really, compassionate mode today. I just want you all to know, I am super proud of this team that I work with every single day. I'm really honored and privileged to work around such a great team. And so, without them and the team, CCTA would not have the reputation and the support that we all do every single day. And I really appreciate the team and very proud to work alongside them every single day. The last thing I wanted to kind of just give a heads up is, you're all familiar with the BART issue. Our letter's in the packet, so you're aware of that. The last thing I want you all to be aware of is our reauthorization legislation is going to be posting soon. This will basically be able to provide the authorization for CCTA to actually place a sales tax on the ballot, so stay tuned for that. So I just want to give you all a heads up that will be dropping sometime in the next day or two. And a lot of work has been put into that in terms of really reaffirming our existing authorities and giving us the authority to be able to place this 1/2 cent sales tax on the ballot. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. And then your calendar items are in there, and that takes us to our closed session. Oh.
Recording stopped.
All right. Terry Ann, do you want me to be more specific about what it's for? Okay. So our closed session is going to be
Recording
over
in
in the
progress.
Diablo conference room. It's conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation with Brosmer and Wall versus Contra Costa Transportation Authority, case number C25-00955.
Recording stopped.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Just
All right.
reconvene.
The
Reconvene.
board has completed its closed session. I'll let our attorney comment.
No reportable action from closed session.
Okay, with that, we are adjourning our meeting at 9:18.